Not all audience members are created equal. When you give a presentation and your parents are there to support you, you know that no matter what happens, they'll always have your back. But at the same time, there's always going to be some audience members who are a bit tuned out of your presentation. So that's why in this week's episode of Master Talk, we're going to be covering how to reduce that hostility as much as possible. Hi everyone, I hope you're having a fantastic week. Brandon from Master Talk here, your go-to channel to mastering your talk. And today we're covering hostility from your audience and how to reduce it. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to put out there, as I've said in every single video of Master Talk, it's that if your presentation falls flat, it is not your audience's fault. It's always your own. So it's important to know that no matter what happens, no matter what your audience does, it's up to you to take responsibility for your own presentation and your own message. The other thing I want to put out there is hostility doesn't mean audience members verbally abusing you or physically assaulting you. That's not the topic of this week's episode. What I really want to focus on is the three main pain points that audience members have towards speakers and how to mitigate that before you even enter the room. And those three things are very simple. The first one is if an audience member wants to question something you're saying, finds an inconsistency in your presentation, wants to ask you about it. The second thing is if they have presumptions about your character, something that they believe to be true that might not be exactly true, but that's the impression they'll have of you as soon as you enter the room. And the third one is if they're just envious of the way that you present, or they're jealous of the way that you're presenting content because you seem so knowledgeable what you're doing. Though that is a very small percentage of people that you do encounter. But the idea is, audience members aren't out to get you. That's something I really want to emphasize in this video. They're just there to learn like anyone else, right? And our job is to make sure that we remove as many barriers as possible so that they have a great time enjoying the presentation and taking something away. So let's talk about the three remedies now. Number one, how do we fix inconsistencies when being asked? Very simple. Welcome the criticism up front. Every single keynote presentation I've given, whether it was to teenage girls, whether it was to executives from startups, anybody, everyone wants to question your content. And you know what? That's perfectly fine. It's normal, right? People want to add more to the picture, they want to add more to the presentation, and they want to clarify anything they don't understand, right? And that's perfectly normal because audience members are there to learn at the end of the day. But the reason this causes hostility for most speakers is from the audience's standpoint. It seems that the audience is there to get us, They're trying to bring us down. They're trying to bring the presentation down. And that's not true at all. Look, at the end of the day, I don't need to tell you this, but it's kind of obvious. If you are the subject matter expert of what you're presenting and you believe in your message, you should be welcoming criticism because it's that criticism that A, makes your presentation better, and B, is the best thing that could ever happen in a presentation. Participation. People are actively engaged. This is amazing, right? Another thing I want to point out, especially when it comes to these types of presentations, is there is no keynote I haven't ever given where I've been questioned. Like every single one I've been questioned on, right? And you know the feeling that when you get questioned and you answer the question in a very calm and concise manner, you come out way better than if you weren't questioned at all. So I need you to welcome the criticism up front so that the people that are questioning you and find inconsistencies fall in love with you at the end because you address every single point and every single worry that they have. Second remedy. How do we fix the presumptions, the pre-assumptions that people have about your character of who you are before you enter the room? The best way to do this is to break the stereotypes up front before you even begin presenting. I'll give you an easy example here. So like I said, I give a lot of keynotes, a lot of presentations to different types of audiences. And one weekend, I gave a presentation to a group of girls between the ages of 10 and 18 on how to master their talk because they were doing a pitch competition for an app that they were developing for the whole year. Yes, they were developing an app. They're 10 years old and they know how to code. So obviously it's extremely frightening for me. But what I did to master that presentation is I started to put myself in the shoes of someone of my audience, but more specifically, the worst person in that room and what they would think about me. And here's the tally of that. So let's say I'm a 15-year-old. I'm coming on a Saturday morning to come watch Brendan speak. And the thing that I think about is the following. All year, all of these speakers from big corporations or organizations come in and think that they're experts. They sell themselves as this big, corporate person who's just so important, and you're going to be so enlightened by my presentation and my content. That is the attitude that most teenagers, or at least if I was in the room, that's how I would see it as. They come in, they think that they're all that, they think that they know so much about their content, but they don't really care about me. When I ask a question, I'm 15 years old, they might sway off my question. He's 15, what does he know, right? In other words, what I got from that exercise, yeah, I know I'm a bit crazy, but hear me out. But what I got from this exercise was I realized a very, very important takeaway that I got from not even talking to my audience. And that was, Brendan, when you enter that presentation, you are not their expert. You are not their enemy. You are their buddy teaching them something. And that shift in the mindset of how I thought about it made it so much easier for me to present. Because at the end of the day, whether it was people like Julia consistently asking me questions, right? Whether it was people who just were tuned out in the morning because it was 8 a.m. on a Saturday, I was able to gain their trust slowly but surely by opening up the criticism, welcoming it, but more importantly, taking them seriously. Pretending as if every single question I got was from Bill Gates or someone very important. Because those teenagers deserve the attention and recognition that the other corporate presenters in that year just didn't give them at the same level I did. So you know what happened because I did that? They loved me, right? And another thing I did that I think is very important is I didn't open my presentation with, "Hi, I'm Brendan and I'm the expert, I'm the founder of MasterTalk and I do this." No. I opened the presentation with, when I was 5 years old, I struggled so much with public speaking because they put me in a French education. I had to present in a language I didn't know, and I was worried my entire life. And someone like me still learned how to be a great speaker, and that's why I believe anyone could be great speakers. When you start your presentation like that, acknowledging the fear, not painting yourself as this perfect person, you gain so much more credibility and trust from your audience that it's unbelievable, rather than communicating accolades and all the accomplishments that you've had. Perfect. So now that we've covered these two remedies, the third one, which is probably the most obvious one and is worth saying, is how do you fix envy? How do you fix audience members who are just tuned out, they're jealous of your presentation, they're jealous of your content, they're jealous of how much you know? And it's simple. Check yourself. What does check yourself mean? At the end of the day, there is not one situation I've seen where a presenter was seen as too smart. It's just never happened. But the situation I have seen a lot is when an audience member looks at a speaker and that speaker pretends or acts like they know so much more than their audience about everything just because they know more about this specific topic. Similar to the example I give with the teenage girls. If I went into that presentation, I said, "I'm Brendan, the #1 public speaking coach in the world. I'm this expert and you need to listen to me. Only God can defy me." What kind of impression am I giving these kids, right? They don't trust me. They think I'm all that. They think I'm full of it. And they don't want to listen to what I'm saying. But I still communicated that same amount of knowledge that I had. But I did it in a way that was friendly, that was on equal grounds with them. So in other words, the best way to remove how envious your audience is of you is to check yourself. Like, take your ego, put it at the door, pretend they're your buddy, pretend they're your friend, put yourself, in the shoes of your audience, and then use that to better understand them and deliver a presentation that matters to them. As always, if you enjoyed this week's episode of Master Talk, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well to see more. And I'll leave you off with this important point. At the end of the day, audience members aren't there to attack you. They're not there to get after you. They're here to learn as much as you are. So by fixing these 3 remedies up front, you'll be able to not only master your talk, but deliver a presentation that's captivating and that they'll never forget. Thanks, guys. See you next week.